Hello and welcome to the Commentary Box. On today's show we are joined by a Leicester fan, so we'll be talking a bit about Leicester. Also we'll be talking about David Wagner's recent sacking at Huddersfield, and of course we'll be talking about transfers. So yes, hello and welcome to the Commentary Box. As always, we are joined by me, Sam Turner, and Jake Griffiths. But Jake, we have another person on the show today, don't we?
Of course we do. Of course we do, as always do. But guest-wise, yes, we have another Kyle, not the Brighton fan from before. The chances of our first two guests being the same name is very unlikely. But as Sam said earlier, we've got a Leicester fan on the show. So I'd like to say welcome, Kyle, firstly.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
That's
all right.
Okay, no worries, of course. So, of course, we're going to be talking about Leicester. And I think to start off with, we've got to look at sort of the situation they're in right now. So just to give everyone a bit of a fact and idea of where they are, they're sitting 8th in the table, 22 games played, 9 of which winning, 9 of which they lost, and 4 draws. Exactly the same record as West Ham have, and very similar to Watford, who've just drawn 1 more and lost 1 less. So being very similar position to all of those clubs, but when you look at them individually, there's actually a vast difference in how the fans are and how everything's going. Like we look at West Ham right now, they're thriving a lot. They're doing very, very well. Young players like Declan Rice coming through, good signings like Felipe Anderson, Arnautovic, are all playing very, very well, and things are very positive there. Likewise with Watford, new manager coming in, obviously sort of in the beginning of the season, brought in a lot of players in that time, quite a lot of experienced players as well, them doing very, very well as well. However, when it comes to Leicester, it's a bit of a different story. So obviously they went through a very rough spell of not winning many games, and Claude Puel was under a lot of pressure. Off the back of that, they beat City away and Chelsea at home. Very, very good results, obviously inspiring a lot of confidence back into squad. But then they got a very disappointing loss at Cardiff. Then beat Everton as well, which was a very good result there, and then lost to Southampton. And within that time as well, and I think we'll start with this first, is they lost to Newport County in the 3rd round of the FA Cup. And just to start off with, Carl, I want to ask you, because it's very interesting and you hear a lot of people talking about it, the side that Claude Puel chose. Are you disappointed with this? When you saw a weakened side, was it you expected it and you see nothing wrong with that? Or are you one of the people who may believe, you know what, an FA Cup would be a great thing to focus on this year? And do you feel you should have played a better team?
Well, I think it is that I did sort of expect a weaker side for what we sort of the game that we had, but it was kind of hard to shove in Matty James in the centre of the park, who's only played 2 games all season after coming back from an Achilles injury. So you're just like, do you really need to play him in the middle? He's only played 2 games.
Yeah, well,
I think the team was quite strong. It gives a lot of confidence to the players that played. Fuchs is getting on now. He's getting on to his probably early 30s, getting on to 30s. I think 35, I think he's getting on for. He played him at left back against a very youthful Newport County right winger. And I sort of thought that, it wasn't a bad choice. But I think we probably do need another left back to cover up at the moment.
Yeah, well, of course you've got Ben Chilwell as well. But if you're resting him, or whether he was injured, the decision to play Fuchs might have not been the smartest move from Puel. But do you feel that within the FA Cup, obviously you said you expected them to play a weaker side. do you feel that side was still good enough to beat Newport? Like when it first came out, did you think, obviously you understand that, but you feel, yes, it's a strong enough side? Or are you leaning more towards we should have played a stronger side? And would you like to see Leicester push more in the FA Cup this season?
I think the team that we put out was probably, without Maddison, without Vardy, without Schmeichel, it was probably still a strong side that we still could have put out. But I think, what FA Cup is becoming one of the hardest cups to ever win in the English league at the moment, because it's getting with them top 4 teams: Man City, Man United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Arsenal, them kind of sides, Chelsea as well. Them kinds of sides that you're just going to get in the final and you've got to beat them. But it's getting harder to beat them now because they're getting more and more better sides with them, better players, more youthful players, and they're coming through the youth squads as well. And then coming from there, it's quite hard for like teams like Leicester and other teams that have got the squad and the mentality to win the FA Cup. They just can't because of the teams that are else in there. So you just want like a cup upset, like obviously Newport beating us, but you want teams like that and probably even higher or even lower to beat the teams near the top. So beat the top 4 because it gives them more of a chance. Plus, it sort of I know managers want to win near enough every cup for the team because it increases confidence. But I think allowing other teams to get there and play their full strength squads and actually get far in the FA Cup sort of helps them, not just budget-wise and getting all the money in from replays or home games or away games against big clubs, but it sort of helps them improving their confidence as well. And I think we should have played a stronger side than we did against Newport. I do agree with that because we do need to win a cup other than just finishing halfway mid-table in the Premier League. But I think obviously Man City played near enough their full strength squad against both Rotherham in the FA Cup, and then they played in the semi-final of the English League Cup against Burton. I think obviously playing your full strength side like that, it puts a bit of pressure on the smaller teams, but you sort of have to show your dominance within that because you're a Premier League side. You're halfway through the table. You need to show that you are a good team and you deserve to be in the Premier League, not just play your youth squad and get beat. And that just shows that you've not got the players other than your main players to obviously go on and win it. But I think other than that, I think we do expect to play our full strength side. We've got a lot of games to play. We've got 38 games in the Premier League plus the EFL Cup as well, as alongside the FA Cup. I know not all players can play that many games, but they're footballers at the end of the day. The amount of money they get paid, they should be able to play that many games. But I think other than that, they do get a lot of pressure on them, and obviously playing more games could lead to more injuries. But I think it's a 50-50 call with games like that because when if you play your full strength squad in the FA Cup, the League Cup, or a smaller cup, then you've got more risk of making injuries toward players as well.
Yeah, well, because you wouldn't want, for example, the likes of Vardy or someone like that getting injured. Obviously, for me, it's slightly hard to relate, and probably for you as well, Sam. I don't think in any cup competition, really, we'd see too many changes made to our side. Certainly not with Gillingham, anyway. We wouldn't see them resting any players. Swansea, maybe not so. Maybe more dependent on who they are playing.
Yeah, I think when we were in the Prem, we used to rest players, obviously, and we used to have a terrible FA Cup record. We lost to Oxford away, lost to Blackburn away, and when you were in the Premier League, it would almost like the FA Cup. It's a really exciting weekend, as I was saying last time, but it's one of those times where you can rest players and it's that chance to. And as you were saying, you shouldn't have to with the amount of money that they're on, but it's like that chance to give other players a chance. So I think that's obviously the kind of the reason why. But with the Capital One Cup, I think it's a bit different. I think for Premier League teams, I reckon it's more of a chance to go on and win a Capital One Cup because neither the big teams are too interested either, so it's that kind of opportunity to like win a trophy. And I think didn't you go out to Man City in penalties, and Puel played another week inside in the semi-final or in the quarter-finals, didn't he? I mean, what's your opinions on that?
City.
Yeah, we
lost the penalties.
That must have been frustrating because I guess you got so far. You never know, if you had a slightly better team out that day, you could have maybe got to extra time and maybe won it. It's just like one of those situations where, with Leicester being okay in the league, why not just risk trying to win a trophy? Obviously he wants to, but it's just make that risk.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think definitely in the League Cup, like you said, those sort of teams like Leicester, West Ham, Everton, those teams are sort of outside the top 5 or 6, so to speak. They're the ones you'd think, we'd go for it. And actually, I'm quite surprised. I didn't realise that Leicester played a week inside. In terms of the fan base and how you felt, when you saw you playing a week inside against City, were you just like, oh, okay, we're probably going to lose only a cup game anyway? Or were you quite annoyed, Carl, that you thought, actually, this is a competition we could go quite far in? Why are we playing a weakened team?
I think the way that it was going, Man City were on a very, very bad start, a bad run at the moment on the way that it was. And we basically gave them a little bit of confidence back to them by playing, not just like we played, because we didn't play brilliantly, but I think the way that he played the team, it wasn't a bad side at all. I wouldn't say it was a weak side. It was still quite a strong side, but I wish I would have played. I know it would have been a risk, but you got to take them sometimes. And I think playing Inacio, he's not a full amount of confidence at the moment, and he's not a threat. I wouldn't say he is a threat up front. And against Man City, he's played for Man City, and
they
Man
know his
City
tricks.
know him at the back of the hands.
Yeah.
I think playing Vardy then would have probably been better for us, and played exactly the same side. Just put Vardy up front instead of Inacio, and then that just gives us a little bit more threat up front.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it's exactly what teams want to see. I certainly think if Gillingham played any sort of weekend team in any competition, I'd be annoyed. The only one I wouldn't care about is the Checker Trade Trophy, but I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, that's another story for another day. That is shocking.
A big rant all about that. We'll leave that for another time. But I think just to sum up what we talked about Leicester, like I said, Cole, you're 8th in the table. That's quite good. That's quite expected of where Leicester would be. I know you're not quite playing the football you would like, but I guess it comes down to the end of the day. Are you more of a Puel in overall what you've seen, or do you think you should get rid of him and potentially look to get someone else in before the end of the season?
I think not all, but most City fans do want him out. But I think the problem is that I don't know if it's true or not, but there is sort of a thing that we're on probation. The thing is that it means that we can't buy anyone and we can't sack our manager due to our owner passing away in that helicopter crash. That sort of means we're on probation for, I don't know how long it is. I don't know if it's true, but we're sort of on that at the moment. So as soon as, I don't know if our vice chairman at the moment, I don't know if he gets the club, but I think that transaction's got to go through first before we can do anything to the club from where it is now.
It would make sense.
I understand. Yeah. I see what you mean, because everything's in his name. It's done in that way. So you've got to officially appoint someone, so to speak, to sort of take control before anything can happen. And it's interesting that I think that's quite obviously we don't know if that's true, but if that did come out, it would make sense. It is quite a logical thing. I can understand the reasoning behind that. But it's interesting what you say about most Leicester fans wanting him out, or at least more than half saying out than in. Because if anything, I think he's done an all right job so far. Like you are in the league where I think you probably should be in the squad you've got. He may not be playing the best football in the world, but it tends to be when managers are got rid of that it's down to the results, and he's not exactly getting poor results. And league position isn't the biggest point. And I think league position wise, you've done well. You're not doing poorly, and it shows that league position is more important than the way you play sometimes. Because obviously United weren't playing. Obviously they're doing very well now, but they weren't playing well when they had a poor league position. But when you're playing poorly but still having a very good position in the league, sometimes the chairman's anyway, it doesn't matter. And I think that sort of moves us on to our next topic, where we look at Huddersfield and David Wagner. Obviously, he's been sacked, and that looks purely based on where they are in the league. Obviously, bottom of the table, 8 points off relegation zone. In the relegation zone, with Cardiff taking 17th place. They got 1 point in their last 5 games. Things not going very, very well at all there. And I think a question for both of you, I'll go to you, Sam, first. Do you feel as if that sometimes in football we're too obsessed with that league position so much, and that determines whether we should do well or not? Because in the likes of Huddersfield, that is true. But then in the likes of Leicester, that's not quite, because he's still he's still got the job at the moment, and fans still want him out. So it's just quite, you've got to get a balance of, does it the way we play matter? Is it position? What's your thoughts?
I mean, with Huddersfield, it is kind of, they are 8 points away from safety in the last place, and he hasn't been performing that well. But it is different stories for different teams in the table. For Huddersfield, I think it might have been a necessity to sack Wagner, though I don't think it's going to do much, because I think the problem with Huddersfield at the moment is the fact that though they have had a strong transfer policy in the past, where they can kind of where they brought themselves up from the Championship, I think the way they're doing business at the moment is still like they're in the Championship, almost trying to get some kind of like cheaper players from Europe, not trying to find the experienced players. And I think that's kind of hurt them, because of course you can do it in the Championship, and that's what Swansea are doing now, and it's a done thing. But when you're in the Premiership, you just need to buy good players, and that's it. I mean, I know it sounds harsh, but that's what you got to do. And I think it's harsh on Wagner to be sacked when he got them to this position, and he's basically trying to save a sinking ship, I think. And I know that's a bit harsh on Huddersfield, but I don't know if it's going to do much sacking him, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. They haven't. First of all, they haven't won a game since the 25th of November, and in terms of looking fixtures forward, they've got City, Everton, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, Wolves, and that's they're all after each other. Obviously, Newcastle probably being the odd one out there, but all of those teams are very, very good teams, and I don't see what much difference sacking him then is going to make at all. I can't see them really picking up many, if any, points at all from all of those games. Against all those top sides, they may get a draw and maybe a surprise win against someone like Newcastle or Everton. But you're not going to see much change at all there. The 2nd of March is when they've got probably the easiest game they would have had for a very long time, and that's Brighton. But they're still not an easy side to beat. So in terms of was it right to sack him? Yes, I understand you want to see where they are in the league. The need for change. But look at their fixtures they got coming up. Is that actually going to make any difference at all?
It's not.
Would it be?
It's not great, because new manager comes in straight away, going to get pummeled. It's going to ruin morale, really. I mean, probably morale is already pretty low, but you're almost better off just giving Wagner the chance, because he knows the players. The players probably really support him still, because he's kind of helped them so much. So if I was Huddersfield board, I would be rolling the dice and thinking, well, we might as well keep Wagner in, to be honest, for the rest of the season almost.
Yeah. be interested to hear what you think as well, Carl. What are your thoughts on managers in terms of like, do you think there's not enough? Because we talk about managers a fair bit here on the commentary box, and and I think it'd be good to hear what you think from a Leicester point of view. Do you feel like there's not enough appreciation for managers? And obviously, as soon as we think of that, we think of Claudio Ranieri. Like, do you think that we should give more sort of praise and allow them to have more time? Or do you think that at the end of the day, obviously, it is a business and things have got to be done, managers have got to be changed?
I think, the appreciation, you've got to take that into account. The things that obviously Ranieri did for us, winning the league, it's just one of them things that will probably never, ever, ever happen again. And you're like, yeah, they've done it. We've won the league for one time. That's probably all you need. But I think you could see it coming. You could see it coming when Ranieri was sacked. I think the players gave up. I think players these days don't like change. And I think Ranieri wanted to change the formation and the way that we were playing, and the players didn't like it. And I think that's why Ranieri left. But yeah, you've got to take into account that the appreciation you've got to give managers to do what they've done. David Wagner, he got them from Championship to the Premier League, and he saved them. He saved them in the coming. I think it was last season, and you just
exactly.
You've got to take into consideration the appreciation you've got to give managers for what they've done for clubs.
Yeah,
and I think Palace. I don't know if it was last season or season before. 7 games, not a single win and not a single goal. I think it was.
Yeah.
And you were like, and they sacked him after 7 games. He was in the job 7. I think it was a couple of months. He was in the job for, and he just got sacked. And you're like, he's not really had the time to merge with the players and get used with them. But I think, I think sometimes managers and boards just think, right, we're not getting where we want to be. We're not expected to be where we are. Sack the manager, get a new manager in as quick as we can, and try and build on the things we've done in previous seasons. And I think that's what we sort of did when we sacked Ranieri. We got Craig Shakespeare in. He took over for caretaker manager, and we did okay. We won, obviously, beat Liverpool 3-1 at home, and then beat Hull on the next week. And I think from there we did okay. But then they assigned him as manager, and I don't think he was a manager. He was an assistant manager, and that's all he was. And I think we needed to get a proper manager in, and a manager that obviously wasn't just. I know that foreign managers are the new thing at the moment, but I think we did need probably an English or that kind of manager to help us from there. But I know Craig Shakespeare did well in the games that he gave us, getting us to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. But I think that was a bit of Ranieri as well, because he got us to Sevilla away, I think it was, and then he got sacked after that game. But we got an away goal against Sevilla, and then you're like, what's wrong with that? And I think, but after Champions League games, we were losing, and you were like, why are we losing after a very good game against Champions League quality teams?
I think you've kind of like hit the nail on the head there with kind of the Europe and kind of the mismanagement of managers almost. Because like to bring say Swansea into this, I've got 2 cases where I feel like the same situation has happened. Like when Francesco Guidolin kept us up, it was almost like Craig Shakespeare keeping us up, because we almost thought it's almost like the situation where you have to give him the job after he's kept you up, because they've obviously done well, but it's not necessarily the right person for the job. Because obviously Craig Shakespeare showed that he was a good manager, but as you said, he's only really assistant, and it probably wasn't the best idea to give him a permanent contract. And it's the same with Guidolin, a really good manager, and he is a manager, but he probably wasn't the right manager to take us forward, because he wasn't the type of manager that we would normally hire. We should have really kind of just said, okay, thank you for keeping us up, but we're going to look elsewhere. And then when you talk about the Europe situation, it's weird, because with Swansea, we were obviously in the Europa League once, and we would go from beating Valencia 3-0 away to losing to West Ham at home, and it's just like, what's going on? And I think with that, it's like the mentality of the team after they've had a good season, and when they're in Europe, it just becomes like they're living in a fairy tale. It's like they can't do anything wrong, and when you play in Europe, you're like, oh, I want to do really well, but when it comes back to the Premier League, you're kind of like, oh, what's yeah. But yeah, I understand what you mean on both points.
Yeah, I think that's a good point made from both. I think that sort of almost sums up the end of our manager thing. But before we move on again, I think we should definitely mention Manchester United and sort of how big of a transformation they've had, and almost how, not wrong, but I remember when he came in and we spoke about this, we had a big section on the podcast about it, I was quite clear and quite adamant that they would do well with him. They'd see a change, but I said they wouldn't put any pressure on the top five. And they're currently level points with Arsenal, who are fifth. So I wasn't quite right with that. Obviously, we could see at the end of the season how that goes, but I know they are 6 points off Chelsea in fourth, then 7 off Tottenham, and then City and Liverpool a bit further ahead than that. But wow, what a transformation. Yes, we said before about, the teams they play, they haven't been the best sides when they need to be seriously tested, but they did. They played Tottenham at Wembley. I think Rashford's goal, I think it was just a 1-0 win in the end, and they've done it. And I just want to hear how big of a transformation he's had, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, we do make some interesting predictions here at the Commentary Box, and not all of them great. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit Fulham aren't going to finish 7th this year. But yeah, I think we were quite conservative with our predictions on Man United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he's kind of proven what we thought could happen, and it's happened basically, because he's come in, obviously got at the team playing what they want to do and like playing freely, and it's amazing how that's transformed the side from having the same players but being completely different on the pitch. Like, you see Pogba, he's scoring for fun. You see Rashford, he's off the leash almost. These players are no longer like shackled to their tactic. There's obviously some sort of system in there, but it's not so structured, and they can just do what they want and play well. So it's amazing, the transformation, and I think team morale is the main thing that has caused the change that's happened.
And I feel like the inspiration from the manager coming in is just a change, something fresh. Pogba playing very well, Rashford and Martial are playing well. De Gea's being a lot more consistent now. He was a little bit inconsistent under Mourinho, not too bad, but still a couple of mistakes here and there. Defence has certainly tightened up a lot. We're just seeing improvements all round, and it shows how big of an impact a manager can have into a club, and how much of a change. I remember with Leicester anyway, when Craig Shakespeare came in, I think there was quite a good start for Leicester when he came in. There was instant change and saw them doing well, and we can all relate to our club seeing a new manager coming in and a change of form coming around. The only team in the league right now to win all their 5 games is Manchester United, and no team has even won 4 of their last 5 games. Like they've lost a couple or drawn some here and there, something like that. So it shows a lot of character from the player to sort of turn it around, but it also might even highlight, Sam, how bad of a job that Mourinho was doing. We knew it wasn't great, it wasn't really working at all, but to have such a huge impact I don't want to say from just a simple managerial change, but it is quite a big thing in a club. But they haven't exactly signed any new players to boost their score. They haven't really changed tactics that much, really. Maybe being a bit more offensive than defensive. So only little changes here and there that have really made massive, massive differences to the club. So it's interesting to see that, and I'm really intrigued to see how far this goes now. And I think we could maybe have a little prediction again.
Are you
see
sure
if we
about
are a
this?
little.
Are you sure you want another prediction?
I'm going to risk it, and I want to hear what all of us think. I'll let you start, Sam, to set the tone. Then we'll go on to Carl, and then I'll say mine.
Okay.
Of where do you think? And then we're not very good at predicting place, finishing the league. But where do you think Manchester United are going to finish this season, Sam?
Well, oh, you did this to me again. You asked me about Van Dijk the other week, whether he was the best centre back in the world, and you put me on the spot again here. I'm sorry, Kyle. I'm going to stall a bit because I need to think about this, but I'm going to say they're going to finish 5th.
Okay, interesting. And who do you think is going to drop out then?
Tottenham.
Oh.
I reckon they're going to
third.
Yeah.
Do you think Kane's going to be that big of a blow?
Yeah, I honestly do, because I don't know if was hearing things, but isn't Janssen coming back from injury or from loan somewhere?
Yes, I think he played in the cup the other day or something.
I see. And I still don't think Janssen or Llorente are not that necessarily good enough, but they don't fit the system enough to like make sure that Tottenham will be okay. So depending on how long Kane's out, I think they could drop out of the top 4 this season. Yeah,
well, I think Kane's not back till March, but I think the difference between the likes of Kane and then Llorente and Janssen, obviously there's a difference in class because Kane is a lot better than them, but Kane offers more than just the aerial threat of a target man. You know, he's happy to sometimes drop back, take these long shots.
Exactly.
He's got an incredible pedal record, and he offers a lot more than them two. Them two are very often quite basic target men. So I feel like he is going to be greatly missed. I don't know if they drop out the top 4, but interesting points. Kyle, where do you think United are going to finish this season?
It's a difficult one, I can agree with that. But I think the way that they're going, you can see with the teams around them, like obviously the same points as Arsenal, Chelsea aren't really on a roll. They're on a bit of a shaky win, draw, lose streak. I think they will finish in the top 4.
Oh,
big, bold prediction.
Because Arsenal aren't consistent. They are quite shaky with the loss at West Ham.
Yep.
Chelsea aren't on a consistent run either. And the way United are going, they're just winning for fun. So, yeah, I think 4th is probably the highest they can go.
Yeah, I feel that's pressure on me now as well as making predictions. I genuinely don't like.
You've had all the time, Jake. Come on, you know.
It's hard. It's hard because obviously United right now are playing incredible. You know, they're the only team to win 5 in a row at the moment, and Arsenal are very shaky, but they're always shaky, and they always seem to still be up there. And the likes of Chelsea can be good, but occasionally inconsistent. Kane has just been injured, so Tottenham have got a big blow. City and Liverpool are probably going to finish, both of them, with the top 2. We'll actually come on about who we think is going to win the title. More questions after this. But for me, I'm probably going to agree with Sam in terms of, I think... I think they're going to finish 5th. I think that's the most realistic thing to happen. In terms of who's going to drop out, it's a very hard one. With Tottenham, it's hard to see where the goals are going to come from if it's not coming from Kane. I know the likes of Son and that perform, but Kane has often influenced that somehow, maybe not necessarily getting the assist from it, but without him, I feel like this confidence can be dropped in the team. That's tough. I think Arsenal will drop out of all of those. I think Arsenal have shown the most inconsistent. out of all of those. And I think they're the team that we can realistically see. Obviously, I'm trying to not factor in the Kane too much, but realistically look at the club. They're very shaky. Defence isn't good at all, and lots of mistakes here and there. So I'm going to say they're probably finished fifth. I do think that's as good as they will go. I just can see Chelsea performing at the same rate as they are, and United just to maybe slow up a little bit, so they're not going to come too much further. In terms of more bold predictions, and this will be at the end of our predictions before we talk about transfer to finish off today. I'm still backing City to win the league. I still think they will. I know they're 4 points off, but I just feel that now they're really going to just be pushing so hard and aren't going to take any sort of game slightly lighter than the other. I know, Sam, you're currently with saying you think Liverpool win the league.
Yep.
Are you still behind that? Cool.
Yep.
Kyle, what do you think? Like obviously, me and Sam have both given conflicting views. We've talked about it quite a lot previously, but it's interesting to hear from another outsider. Who do you think is going to finish first?
It is a difficult one because the way Liverpool are going, they're winning scrappy games. They won 1-0 against Brighton for a penalty, but they didn't. I know Brighton are quite strong defensively, and especially at home as well. I think it is a difficult one. Liverpool have been exceptional all season. Really, they've not really put a foot wrong. And but I do think the way Man City, not the way they're playing, but the way that they're pushing aside teams. I know they beat Wolves only 3-0, but it was still quite a convincing win. And I think if they can keep on that run, I think they could nick it. But the way that the goals are drying up at the moment for Liverpool, it could be still quite tight up there.
Yeah.
But
go on.
I think I might have to go with Man City.
Love that.
Oh, Kyle, you let me down. You've let me down.
It's a tight call. It's a very, very, very tight call. But I think Man City will nick it. Only just though. I think it'll only be like a 2-point difference.
Yeah, it will go down to the wire.
Be tied.
Yeah.
Just to back up what we're saying, a bit of fact, I think Carl's made a really, really good point there about goals drying up a bit now. So I'm going to go back to first game of December. So scoring just one goal against Everton and that. Then we saw 3 against Burnley, 4 against Bournemouth, just 1 against Napoli, 3 against United, 2 against Wolves, 4 against Newcastle, 5 against Arsenal. And then this year, we've seen 1 against City, 1 against Wolves, and then 1 against Brighton. And I think, and actually, I haven't really even heard this argument or point so far, but I think you might be right about those goals drying up. And I don't think this is exactly one player's playing worse in the team. But I feel like they're feeling the pressure, and maybe they don't want to be so attacking and go for those goals so much because they could be worried about the ones they concede. You know, do you guys, how important do you see? Because for me looking at that December, looking how many goals they scored, now seeing they've only got 1 goal in the last of their 3 games, that would be quite a worrying thing if I was a Liverpool fan. I haven't even really thought about that at all. Obviously, they did get a result against Brighton, and that is what counts. But you look at City and sort of their last games and sort of the goals they've scored and things like that. Like results wise, they beat Wolves 3-0. Obviously scored 9 against Burton, 7 against Rotherham, got 2 against Liverpool when they played them. Before that, still having 3 against Southampton. 2 against Palace. Obviously, I know when they played Leicester, they only got 1. But you look at that, City are scoring a lot of goals at the moment, and then Liverpool aren't. How big of a concern do you think that could be to Klopp, Sam?
I don't think it's too big of a concern because you see Premier League winning sides being able to scrap out matches and just grab that one goal to win it. And I think the Liverpool of last season wouldn't have won these games. Like that Brighton game, going to what's it called? The Amex is not an easy task. And I think that would have been a game they would have slipped up last year, or maybe just got a draw. But I think this time round, I think they're managing to grind out games more often. And I'm not saying that Man City can't this season, but I think with Liverpool being able to do this, and though they're not scoring as many at the moment, I think it's more of a positive sign than anything.
Really? Well, I can see what you mean, and I do agree with that with the grinding out results. I can understand, but for me, if I'm going to look at like recent form and seems like they could be really pushing, City seem to be properly stepping on the gas now. I know obviously they had those games when they lost to Leicester and Palace. But to beat Liverpool and to go on to win their next couple of games, yes, I know against lower league sides, but still that consistency to keep on going and winning at a high rate, I think that could be very interesting come end of the season. Could you imagine just them winning on goal difference or something that was that tight? It'd be really interesting to see. But I think that sort of wraps up all of our talk on the football, apart from the transfers, and to go straight into that really. We look at if we look at updates that have happened in terms of transfers, I think Juventus have made it clear that they sort of want Randy to come in January rather than the end of the season, which is quite interesting to potentially maybe go on loan until the end of the season. With the Fabregas move that has happened and he's gone to Monaco, he's played a game already, I think. And obviously there was a bit of upset when he was leaving, playing his last game for Chelsea. In terms of transfers that haven't happened and potential, I'd like to get both your thoughts on the Arnautovic situation. I think 35 million is about the asking price from one of the Chinese teams, and I think they're going to offer him a ridiculous amount of money per week. Carl, I'll go to you first. What do you think about this Arnautovic move? Do you think it's the right move at the right time for him in his career? I think he's about 30 now or 29. Do you think it's a one that he should take, and he's sort of got to that age where he's ending and he should be going to sort of look at the MLS and Chinese league to sort of settle down his career a bit? Or do you think he's right in the middle of it, playing so well for West Ham? Why would he want to stop?
I think it's a tough call for him, but it's his choice at the end of the day. He is playing very, very well for West Ham, but he has been hit with quite a few injuries at the moment. But he has been playing well. He scored two goals in his, was it not last game, but the game before that, I think.
Yeah. He
scored 2 goals there. He's West Ham's main threat up front, I think. You've got Philippe Anderson, and obviously they've just bought Nasri, but he is their main threat towards goals and assists. And I think it will be a big blow for them, for West Ham, if he does go. But they've got to replace him if he does go, and not just expect players that are either already there or the players that they bring in. They expect them to do exactly what Arnautovic has done. But I think it will be a tough call for West Ham either to let him go or to keep him. But I think it's his call at the end of the day. If he goes and he's not happy at West Ham and he goes, then it's his call, because if he's not happy, then he won't play to his full potential.
Yeah, and I feel like he's one of those players who need to be happy to be playing. I think that's so crucial. To be playing well, I think it's very crucial for a player, especially like him. I'm going to put you on the spot here again, Sam. If you were Arnautovic right now, what would you do?
Well, if I was Arnautovic, I would sort out my hair. But also, I would actually... I know this is going to sound harsh again, but like attitude-wise, he could have been not one of the best players, but he could be a really good player playing for a top club like Man United, Chelsea. But the way his attitude has been at a lot of clubs, by the sounds of it, it's just been poor. It's just like he thinks he's all that, and he's he is, but the way he acts, it just doesn't help his case.
There's an arrogance around him, isn't there?
Yeah, an arrogance. He was like that at Stoke, and he's been like that at West Ham, and I know he's had slight reason to, but again, as Carl mentioned, he's been a bit injury prone, so. But if I was him, I would actually stick it out at West Ham for the rest of the season, and if I do well, I would maybe consider moving to a big club. If I end the season again, maybe injured or not firing on all cylinders, I'd think maybe, okay, this is my last chance to make some big money. I'm going to head out to China or somewhere. And don't diss the MLS, Come on, it's not just a retirement ground anymore.
Yeah, well, no, to be fair, it is getting better.
Yeah.
And I think you've said that a lot, to be honest, recently. And I think with Arnautovic, I think I agree with you. I feel like if he has a very strong end to the season, like, this is the opportunity for Arnautovic. Like, if he's being offered from the Chinese league, it doesn't mean that his career is coming to an end, but it's saying you either need to start performing well and one of the big teams in the Premier League come for you, because that's ideally what everyone wants. Or if you start playing average and do all right, you might think, I might go China, or you might stay. I feel like the Chinese option would always be open, and money-wise, that will definitely help you financially because of the extortion amount of money that they give to their players. But I feel like I agree. I think you've said that well, Sam. I think that's what things he'd be thinking right now, and be interesting to see what happens with him at the end of the season, and how his form goes with West Ham. I think in other transfer news as well lately, obviously Bournemouth, and you made a good point about Neil Warnock being involved with transfers, and that I'll bring on to that. But as we know, after Bournemouth sold Defoe, they got in Solanke and Klein. And what were you telling me about Klein before we went on air, Sam?
Well, basically, Klein was given his debut by Warnock, I think, at Crystal Palace. And there was a deal almost agreed for him to move to Cardiff. I think it was on loan, which would have been a really good signing for Cardiff. But basically what happened is obviously Bournemouth were also in contact with Klein for a permanent deal, and obviously Warnock did not know about this. So Warnock found out that Bournemouth had signed Klein permanently by watching the news, and he was basically slating Liverpool and Klein, saying he was really disappointed in them. And I wouldn't want to be on the end of that kind of disappointment from Neil Warnock, to be honest.
No, I think I agree with that. And on the topic of sort of not sneaky, but potentially sneaky little things that have been going on. What are your guys' thoughts? Now, I explained it to you guys before we went on. Now, I'll just go on it again so everyone gets a good idea, obviously, with the whole Leeds United derby thing going on. So those who don't know, there was a derby training session a couple of them before their game against Leeds last Saturday, and there was basically someone on site. I think he had bolt cutters and a camera or something like that on him. And he was watching the derby players, and he was actually associated with Leeds. And when they asked the Leeds manager on this, he was very open in saying, yes, I know the man. I sent him there to check out on the training, find tactics, things like that. And he was very open about it and said how he was. And there was a huge outrage from Derby fans, from Frank Lampard, and from some pundits on social media. Some people completely against all the outrage and just saying, well, this happens all the time. He's used to it. People know about this is ongoing. There's no official rules against it. Some people calling for point to be deducted. Some people just saying absolute nonsense. And I'll go to you first, Carl. I just want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think do you think this is wrong? Do you think that it's an eye opener for the FA to bring in a rule, or do you think there's nothing wrong with it? And then secondly, do you think anything should be done to Leeds? Do you think they should get a talking to? Do you think they should get a fine, point deducted? What are your thoughts?
I think it's not one of the things you particularly see in football or any sport. You don't see players or the board of the club going to other people's training grounds or matches and seeing how they play. You don't see it at all, I think. And I think the problem is, it's not sportsmanlike. You'd never do it in your wildest dreams. But obviously, the way that the manager reacts to it and just admits to it, is he thinks that it's natural to happen and occur. And I think if there was something there to, obviously, if the rule was intact to say that it was wrong, then obviously Leeds as a club, I don't know if it'd just be, if the manager's told him, then yeah, the club will be either 1, deducted points, or 2, fined for what's happened. But I think the FA do need to look into it, because only on the rule situation, not deducting any points, because it's not in the rule book to say that you can't do it, but it's just not a natural thing that you see. But I think, yeah, the FA probably do now need to look into it and now see and put a rule in for it, because if people see that and think it's okay to do, then other teams are going to do it, and I think that just then creates more and more pressure on the FA just to pick up on it. And I think that's what they'll need to do now. They'll need to pick up on it and go, right, this is a rule we're going to put in. If you get caught doing it, either 1, get deducted points, or 2, get fined. And I think that's what they've got to do now, because it's silly things like that will cost. Obviously, it's not going to cost them now, but if the FA do bring the rule in, then it will cost them not just points, but could also be costing you some money in it. And if obviously, like Leeds being in the Championship and the way that the table stands at the moment, it's still quite a strong, tight title race between Leeds, Norwich, I think West Brom and Sheffield United up there as well. It's still quite tight up there. And if Leeds would have been deducted points because of the rule, if it was intact, that goes the title race just gets knocked. It depends how many points they get deducted. If it's 10, then that's Leeds near enough out of title race contention, and that's some of the other teams that can go and possibly win it now. And I think they do need to pick up on it now and put in a rule for it, because it's just not sportsmanlike to see it like that. And it's just, I don't think it was the right thing to do. But obviously, if he thinks it's right, he just goes and does it and just tells the board, I want to have a look at this, and he does it. And if he thinks it's right, then he thinks it's right. But obviously, the way his rules were, wherever he was past managerially wise, then I think if he thinks that's right, then he's going to think it's right over here. But I think it's just not on, really.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I don't think it's right. I presume you probably think something similar, Sam. I don't think any actions necessarily take place, but I don't think there should be any punishment. But it's not a law. But like I was saying earlier, it could be an eye open to the FA to possibly implement a rule or two, Sam.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. Like, it's a chance to do something if they want to do something. Because, of course, it's not written in the rules, but it's a chance to write a rule about it. Because it's not that nice to see. It's a bit kind of below belt, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean. In terms of transfer news, I think that is almost about it. To be honest, I don't. Can any of you think of anything transfer-wise, sort of lurking around? Any sort of potential, any outrageous rumours? I haven't even heard an outrageous rumour for a while. Normally Arsenal are linked with everyone.
That is true. I do have one quick question for Kyle, and that is linked to transfers. And do you have any position or any player that you would like to sign if you are able to sign anyone this January transfer window?
I think we definitely do need another option other than Vardy. Vardy can't do it all on his own, and the way that we're playing, he's not getting the service he needs. Yeah, we brought in James Maddison, and he's just been an exceptional signing. And I think obviously him behind Vardy is obviously where he plays. He can't play out on the wing like Puel's been playing him. He plays him out on the wing. He's not a winger. Yeah, he played on the wing for Norwich when he was at Norwich, but that's Championship football. It's completely different. I think the number 10 role suits him, but when we have Vardy on and Vardy runs out of energy, we need that second option. We need a new plan B. I don't know who we'll get. If we could get anyone, I don't know who we'd aim for. But we do need a plan B to Vardy, because if Vardy doesn't work, we need probably a tall man, maybe person just to aim for when we're in the box for corners and stuff. I think we do need a main man up front when either Vardy's injured, or we take him off at half time, or we take him off after 60 minutes and we're losing. We can't just bring on Iheanacho, because Iheanacho is either a similar player to Vardy, but he doesn't run. He doesn't run like Vardy does. He doesn't chase the ball down like Vardy does. And we just need that another option other than that. But I think other than that, we probably do need to strengthen up I know we've got Ben Chilwell as our left back, but as Fuchs is out of contract at the end of the season, just like Danny Simpson is. I think we do need another potential left back. But as soon as Daniel Amarty's back after his injury, I think that's right back sorted, because we've got Ricardo as well with Amarty as well, so they play right back. So I think as soon as we get obviously them back, that's right back sorted. And I know Danny Simpson has done a lot for us. He's still a good player, but obviously I don't really want him to go, but I can see him. If Puel's still manager by the end of the season, I can see probably Danny Simpson leaving, Fuchs is leaving. I can see players that we won the Premier League with, Shinji Okazaki. I can see him going, but you don't really want them to go for what they've done for the club. But I think obviously we let Abora go to Villarreal, so that was one thing that we did, which I don't see the reason why he let him go, but he did. But I think some of the transfers that we've had, obviously not just bringing in but letting go, I think we put out Diabate on loan to a Turkish side. I think that's good for him, because it gives up his confidence a little bit and allows him to show what he's made of. So when he does come back at the end of the season, we can basically go out and show us what you've got, because he's not really shown his full potential, what we bought him for, and he does need a little bit of confidence. And I think that's why we sent him out on loan. But I can't really see, obviously, if the probation thing is true, I can't see anyone being brought in. But at the end of the season, if that probation then ends, I think we do need another striker up front other than Vardy as a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
But I think other than just the strike force, I think we probably do need another left back to cover Ben Chilwell in case he gets injured, because we don't have another left back if Fuchs goes at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you made.
Other than that, we are pretty decent in all parts of the pitch. But we just do need probably another plan B other than Vardy, because he can't do it all on his own, and I've been saying that near enough all season now. He can't do it all on his own. If he's not getting service from Maddison, what's the point of him playing? He's just on the pitch to be on the pitch. Yeah, he can get on balls like he did against Everton and he did against Chelsea, but if he hasn't got the service like he did against Everton and Chelsea when he did get put through by Ricardo and Maddison, and if he doesn't have that, he gets put out of the game so easily. And I think from that we do need another plan B, because without a plan B, we've just got Vardy up front. And if we play teams like we did against Palace and we lost 1-0, we did have a very, very poor performance in that game. But I think the reason why we had a poor performance was because Palace's Wan-Bissaka had a very, very good game, and he basically man-marked Vardy consistently throughout the entire game, and they're basically back four did. They put two men on him and stopped him from playing. And I think what Premier League teams have decided now. They've decided to put two men on him, and they stopping him from playing, and we can't really do anything other than play round it.
Yeah, I think sometimes you need other attacking options in clubs to sort of give variety and maybe not allow the opposition to sort of almost predict exactly sort of how you're going to line up and things like that. So I think in overall, like you said, I think another option to back up Vardy, just somewhat a different type of player, would offer a better attacking threat. But yeah, I think transfer-wise, I think we're all good, Sam.
Yeah, I think that roughly wraps up about everything. Thank you for being on the show today, Kyle. It's been a pleasure. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much.
That's right. And that's the end of the show, really. Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. We have. I hope you've enjoyed having a Leicester fan and a guest on today. And of course, I shall play the outro in a minute. But yes, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from Kyle.
And goodbye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to get involved with us online, you can do so on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram and Snapchat. We do lots of polls and posts on there. That is all under Box Commentary. And then secondly, if you'd like to listen to our podcasts on different websites and devices, you can do so on iTunes, Spreaker and YouTube. All of those are under the Commentary Box. And then lastly, personally get involved with us by email to ask any questions or queries. You can do under the email of thecommentary.box.contact@gmail.com.